A great introduction. I am here a lot, I'm sorry. And cool. So, hi, I'm Sid, and I work at design systems at GitHub. The design system is called Primer. It's open source. Here are the docs. Here's the React bindings that I work on. And I want to talk about building accessible, reusable components, but like a focus on accessible today. A warning, I'm not an expert. I'm just like a silly React boy. But I work with a lot of accessibility experts. And in the last 1.5 years, I've had the chance to absorb a lot of information. Oh, my God. Should I just like update right now? You all have 45 minutes. We're going to ignore that. So yeah, I'm a React boy. And then, don't take any of this as like accessibility advice, but think of it as a way of like, I'm just a front-end developer who's doing accessibility work, learning a lot. And maybe you're a front-end developer too. And this talk is actually more relatable. And maybe this is how you can, if you're new to accessibility, maybe this gives you a lens on how to approach this. Cool, so this is one of my pet peeves. Every time and this is like this just quote or tweet gets recycled a lot on Twitter, and it's usually accompanied by like a gradient background with like a framed whatever, which people just say, yeah, don't use a div, use a button. Accessibility is solved. Everyone's happy. We solved all problems. And they're not wrong. I mean, you should use a button when you want something that is interactive. But I think this is a bit reductive, and there's a lot more to it, what I found. So let me start off with these three short forms that get thrown around a lot. So there's YCAG, or WCAG, or like if you're lawful neutral, then WCAG, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So these are like the broadest level of guidelines. And I think my favorite part about these guidelines is they make a really nice acronym called POUR. And the idea is that these are the 4 principles that you should think about anytime you're designing an accessible web content. So it should be perceivable. So perceivable in, I really like the language they use here. So perceivable in ways that people can perceive them. It should be operable. So in ways that people can operate them. It should be understandable. It should be clear what the UI is for. And it should be robust. So it should work across browsers, across technologies, across devices. Cool. The other 2 definitions are this ARIA, which maybe you've heard of. It stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications. So this talks more about how do you give structure and semantics to your web content so that it can convey the right guidelines to your assistive technology. And finally, there's APG, which is the Authoring Practices Guide. And W3C kind of creates a separation between these. The first 2 are what they call normative technical standards, which kind of means that these are recommendations or specification for browsers, accessibility software, and web authors like you and me. And these are like spec, these are standards. While APG is like an informative resource, so it's not a binding spec. You can think of like it's just a blog with some code examples. But if you're like me, then this APG really helps me actually learn. Let me show you what APG looks like. So there's a lot of patterns. Sorry for your eyes. And it has a lot of patterns on popular widgets, popular platforms. Wow, I can really see all of you suddenly. Let me go back. Good. All right, just a fair thing. This talk is, I've used VoiceOver on Mac OS, and I've tested it on Safari and Chrome. So I haven't tested it on Windows or NVDA, so don't copy my garbage code. I think that's good advice in general. Cool. So here's a first example. I have this, maybe you've seen this drop-down pop-up dialog thing, where there are a few tabs. And when you go on GitHub and you try to write some code, these are the 3 options you have. You can clone it on your local. You can open it in a code space, or you can ask Copilot to like, come on, do something. So these are the 3 options, and this looks like a really like compact, really dense, nice UI. It kind of looks good. Here's some mock-up pseudo code for this. There's like a button here, and there's 3 buttons, and there's the 3 sections, I guess. And you can imagine like how you write this code. So there's like last name. This should be a tab, right? Because we want them to look like tabs. And then you attach an on-click handler or something to actually do the toggle things. And it works. But let's see what this experience would be for somebody who cannot see this. So they're not using it visually, but using it with a screen reader. I'm going to turn on the screen reader. Don't be afraid. It talks a lot. We're going to get through it. OK, let's see.
VoiceOver on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome. Go to File. Edit text. Blank. Has keyboard focus.
OK, so all messages starts with like it announcing where you are. Thank you. Announcing where you are. And now I'm going to tab to the button. There's a long lag.
Code. Menu pop-up. Button.
So it tells you that you're in a button. It tells you there is a menu pop-up. And it tells you the label is code. Pretty useful. So now that I know it's a button and it has a menu, I can, God, this is going to happen a lot in it. So sorry about that.
Application. Nudge. Question mark circle. Chrome. React app. Local. Button. Local Coda Spaces Copilot. Groove. Code. Menu. Application. Chrome. React app. Preview. Less than div greater than code. Less than code. Menu. Pop-up. Button.
I'm sorry. This is going to happen a lot.
VoiceOver off.
Is it possible to, like, do you know why the audio is like a few seconds late? I imagine it's just wires going, but like, OK. I might interrupt the voiceover. Voiceover might interrupt me. We'll get through it. OK. Cool. Let's start over.
VoiceOver. Local. Button. Local Coda Spaces Copilot. Groove.
Nice. It's a local button. I'm going to tab.
Coda Spaces. Button.
Oof. OK. The lag's too much. So what I'm going to do is
VoiceOver off.
Thank you. Damn, I should have tested. What we're going to do is I'm going to play it on my MacBook. And then maybe the speakers pick it up. Yeah, OK, let's try this.
VoiceOver on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome. Code. Menu pop-up. Button. Has keyboard focus.
Can you all hear that? Yes. Wait, I can't see you.
Application. Nudge. Quest. VoiceOver off.
Is it OK? Can you hear it? OK, good. Thank you. Put it on the speaker. Nice. Smart. Yeah?
VoiceOver on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome. Go to File. Edit text. Blank. Has keyboard focus.
OK. If you can't hear it, it's on the file. Thank you. It's on the screen. That's like 2 ways of accessing the content. So hopefully one of them works. Cool.
Code. Menu pop-up button.
Thank you. Code menu pop-up button. I'm going to open the menu pop-up.
Local button. Local Coda Spaces Copilot.
OK. If I want to navigate, I'm going to press tab.
Coda Spaces button. Ooh. Copilot button.
Button.
Copy URL to clipboard button.
There's a lot of buttons here.
HTTPS. GitHub Prime open with GitHub Desktop button. Download zip button.
OK, so there's a lot of buttons here, which can be confusing, especially if I hide this, and now we're just using it.
Local button. Coda Spaces button. Copilot button. Copy URL to clipboard button. VoiceOver off.
So you see, it's all just buttons, right? I didn't use a div. I used a button. I did the right thing. But it's still pretty, like, you can't really tell what's going on. And that's because just using the right HTML semantics isn't really enough. You also have to go another layer and think about what are the interfaces that you're using. And the WCAG doesn't really have, the WCAG has like really good guidelines on general accessibility, but for something like this, we need to check ARIA. And if I just search for tab list, there are a lot of roles that actually are for this. And the spec is really, it's very dense, but it's very good. And it talks about, there's a tab list. It should have child roles. These are the possible attributes that you can add. And I find the spec really useful. But it's also a bit dense to learn for the first time, and which is where the authoring practices guidelines really help. So for example, sure, they have tabs. There you go. let's go. Oh, I'm using the internet. So yes, so it has a lot of guidelines on like what does the keyboard navigation look like? What are the different roles you should use? So let's use some of these roles. OK, back to your eyes. Let's use some of these roles and see what that means. So I'm going to add tab list, right? And all of these buttons are now tabbed. And these content-related things are actually tab panels. That's all I'm going to do. And let's see what that means.
VoiceOver on code, menu pop-up, button, local, selected, tab, 1 of 3.
Local selected tab. There's a selected tab, 1 of 3. So now you know there are 3 tabs.
Chord spaces, selected, tab, 2 of 3.
I love how it says chord spaces, you know, like screw the entire marketing campaign, chord spaces.
Copilot, selected, tab, 3 of 3.
Cool.
Copy URL to clipboard, button.
Interesting. So it knows the tabs, and when it goes to the button, it's the next interactive thing, but you don't really know where this button is.
Application,
Nope.
Chrome,
Nope.
React app, Google Chrome. Copy URL.
So if I look at this visually, I know that there's code spaces, there's Copilot, and then this copy clipboard button is actually part of local, not the last thing that it announced, Copilot.
React app, VoiceOver off.
Thank you. And this is where additional properties come in. So for example, for tab panel, I can actually add an ARIA label. And this could be, let's say, local, or I can add an ARIA labeled by and connect it. So this ARIA labeled by, ARIA described by, these take references. And these are ID references. So I can attach an ID on the button, and then do it for all of them. And now it will announce. So once more. Thank you.
Code, menu pop-up, button. Local, selected, tab, 1 of 3. Chord spaces, selected, tab, 2 of 3. Copilot, selected, tab, 3 of 3.
And now when I enter the tab panel.
Copy URL to clipboard, button, local, tab panel.
Cool, so it announces what you're on, copy to URL button, and then it also announces the tab panel that you're on. But it only does it once, which is good.
Open with GitHub desktop, button.
Sweet, so now when you enter a tab, you know you're inside a tab panel, which is great. Okay.
VoiceOver off.
Thank you. All right, so there's a weird thing that it does where it announces all the tabs are selected, because we're not really telling what tab is selected. And this is like a funny thing, because how do you know which tab is selected, right? It's not really written anywhere, but just this design of like it goes up, it goes down, there's a straight line. This has become such a pattern that we identify these as tabs, and we identify the selected tab. And this is just like how we communicate structure with design. But it's visual design. So somebody using a screen reader does not have access to this visual design, and browsers and screen readers cannot really interpret that. And this is where ARIA semantics come in, so you can give a ARIA selected, and this will convey that this is the tab that's selected. And now I'm entering like from HTML to some like pseudo thing, like this is JSX. But you can do this with like any framework. It doesn't have to be JSX. So I've added ARIA selected. The next thing I'm going to add is, actually, you know what? Let me just show you this as well. Thank you.
Code, menu pop-up, button. Local, selected, tab, 1 of 3.
Local, selected tab, 1 of 3, very nice.
Chord spaces, tab, 2 of 3.
Notice it didn't say selected.
Copilot, tab, 3 of 3.
Perfect.
VoiceOver off.
So it's working. All right, next up, very quickly. So the annoying thing still is that I don't need VoiceOver for this. So you've selected local, but you still have to go through all of the tabs to actually enter the panel. And even though it will announce when you're inside the panel, so that's good, it's a bit strange that you have to go through all of the tabs. And this is where the ARIA boundaries kind of end, and the APG, the authoring practices guidelines, start, where it's actually, can I go there? Sorry, I keep forgetting that I shouldn't do this a lot. So the tab list actually says, to be keyboard accessible, authors should manage focus, but it doesn't really say how. And if you read the managing focus, it's a nice, useful doc, but it kind of doesn't really say much. So except this one line, which is in rich internet applications, the user tabs to signify complex widgets, such as menu, spreadsheet, tab list. And then you can use arrow keys to navigate within the widget. And it kind of just leaves it at that. So it doesn't really say which arrow keys. So does that mean we can like pick our own? Maybe it's just like 1, 2, 3, or it's like arrow keys, or it's like, it could be anything, right? Because it doesn't really say too much. It could be down and up. And this is where the APG comes in. And the interesting part is, this is kind of how our industry develops. When there is something missing in the spec, we fill in the gaps, and then it becomes popular, it becomes the trend, and then people get used to it. And this is exactly how, this is exactly how the tab interface is, right? There is no spec for this, we're just used to it. And similarly, the keyboard navigation, people get used to a pattern, and then other people copy it, it gets popular, and that's where authoring practices come from. It's what people expect. So the way to do that is I'm going to set tab index 0. And for tab list, the navigation pattern that's popular is you use left and right arrow keys to navigate between them. And you can imagine the way to do that is like I'm going to remove all my tabs from the tab order by putting tab index -1. But you still need to enter this widget somehow. So I'm going to put just the selected one as 0 so that you can enter it. And then, if you can guess, yeah, you just do like an on key down, and then parse the event. So if like event key is arrow right, you focus on the next tab. And the code inside this actually just looks like find the next element in the DOM and call next on it, and call focus on it. So it's very DOM manipulation, very native JavaScript. And if you press arrow left, then it goes on the previous tab. I'm going to abstract this, I'm going to put it on all of them, and there you go. If I press right, you can navigate. If I press enter, you can select. If I press tab, you go outside the widget, and you can enter the widget, and you can navigate with left and right. Perfect. Now, something that's very common with tabs is that if I'm navigating here, maybe it can just actually switch to the tab as well. And you can, OK, use this for you. Yeah, you can add an on the focus and set selected tab. So this is like some JavaScript stuff, and I've kind of abstracted the keyboard navigation. We have a hook inside Primer called use focus zone. This is like the React bindings. There's also a vanilla JavaScript bindings. It's called Primer behaviors. It's all open source if you want to look at the code and stuff. Cool. Last demo for this one. I'm going to enable.
VoiceOver on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome. Go to File. Edit text. Blank. Has keyboard focus. Code. Menu pop-up button.
OK, I'm going to hide the pop-up. OK, let's see what it does.
Local. Selected. Tab. 1 of 3.
OK, we're now in local selected tab. I'm going to use arrow keys.
Chord spaces. Selected. Tab. 2 of 3.
OK, now I know I'm in chord spaces. Selected. 1 of 3.
Copilot. Selected. Tab. 3 of 3.
Good. I think I want a code space. I'm going to go back.
Chord spaces. Selected. Tab. 2 of 3.
And I know if I tab, I should exit the tabs widget. Oh, I should say tab key. If I press the keyboard tab key, I will exit this tab list widget and enter the panel.
Create chord space on main button. Chord spaces. Tab panel.
That's what I want. So without seeing anything, I can actually still navigate the interface. And this is how your average screen reader does navigate the whole interface. Good.
VoiceOver off.
Thank you. I'm going to look at time. I'm doing very poorly on time, so I'm going to be very, very fast. All right. So next, I have something that's not properly dark themed, but I have this notification settings thing from GitHub. And what it does is that you can actually enable some of these settings. So I want to be notified, let's say, on GitHub, on email, and yeah, only notify when something fails. And when I save it, it updates the button as well. So that seems like a nice pattern. You can see I'm using all the semantic things. I'm using a form. I'm using a field set. I have this input. I have a label. Seems like I'm doing all the right things. There's an interesting UI thing here where you can only be notified when you select something. So if you don't want any notifications, it doesn't really make sense to notify you for failed workflows. So this option is only shown when you have something. Right, cool. Now, let's see what screen reader people see.
VoiceOver on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome. Notify me. GitHub. Email. Failed workflows only. Menu pop-up collapsed. Button. Has keyboard focus.
OK, makes sense.
VoiceOver off.
Let me save this. OK, now let's do it again.
Voice.
Now let's see what happens inside the menu.
Select notification channels. Dialog on tick. Tick box. Select notification channels. Group.
OK, so we know that we're in a dialog, which is called select notifications channel. That's nice. It says untick tick box. So I know I'm in a tick box, a checkbox, which is unticked. OK, let me tab through my options.
Untick tick box.
OK, I know there's another unticked tick box.
Untick tick box.
There are 3 unticked tick box.
Cancel button.
And then I can cancel.
Save button.
Save.
Untick tick box.
Okay, and
select
then it
notification channels. Group.
Starts looping. OK, so I know there are 3 unticked tick box, right? Which is very useful.
Voiceover off.
This is not what a visual user sees. A visual user sees labels. And this is because we're not actually connecting the input and the label. So maybe you've seen this before. This is a pretty common, like this is the first thing I learned while exploring accessibility, that connect your form labels. And so you have an ID here, you have a form label here, and that should do it. So let's see.
Voiceover on Chrome. React app.
Let's get that one.
Email. Untick. Tick box.
OK, now I know it's email tick box.
Add. Untick. Tick box.
Perfect. I'm going to
Email. Untick. Tick box.
I'm going to tick something.
Tick. Email. Tick box.
Nice. Now it even announces that you just ticked email. Perfect. And because this is a form, I can submit. I can just hit enter and submit it.
Notify me. Email. Menu pop-up collapsed. Button.
Nice. And the nice part is that because the button contents tell your settings, it also informs you back. Notify me on email. Perfect.
Application. Nudge.
Thank
Chrome.
you.
React app. Google
Love to know.
Chrome.
Now, if I hide, or let me just say,
Select notification channel on GitHub. Untick. Tick box.
all right. Now, if I just select
Tick. On GitHub. Tick box.
an
Email.
email,
Tick. Tick box.
and now I hit enter, I would never really know that there's another option here because the option doesn't really show up until you actually have it enabled, right? And if I'm a screen reader user without, I'm going to end this.
Voiceover off.
Thank you. Without these options, I would just go through these options without actually discovering there is a 4th option here. And that's kind of, we do this a lot, especially in React land, where you might have like a condition, and then you're only rendering this when some condition is met. But that's actually, you're creating hidden things which are easy to discover for visual users because, well, I have a nice animation, and it appears, and it catches your attention, but not at all for screen reader users. And something that we can do here, which is really helpful, is to always show it. And if you think about it, that's actually better for everyone, because even if you don't have something selected, you can only see your options in the future. You don't have to be surprised and delighted when a new option pops in. It's helpful when it's already there. Of course, you shouldn't be able to select it yet, so maybe it should be disabled, right? That makes sense. However, let's see what happens to the keyboard navigation. So I'm on the first tab, second, third. Oh, I didn't add disabled, did I? This is a bug. I made a bug. What should have happened, trust me on this, is that disabled elements are actually skipped. So this is what would have happened. Because when you add disabled to something, it actually takes it out of the ARIA tree. It takes it out of the screen reader order. So it would never actually announce it. And what you should do, oh, I know what I did. OK. What you should do is use ARIA disabled. And ARIA disabled is interesting because it has the semantics to convey that something is disabled, but it doesn't have the CSS styles. So you have to own the CSS styles. And maybe you're adding a class name here or something else. This example completely broke. I'm going to reload.
Voiceover on.
No,
voiceover off.
Yes. Yes, I knew my code works. OK, so as you can see, it disables. And when you put ARIA disabled, it's back, which is good because it will get announced. But we can add disabled styles ourselves. There you go. That's the one. All right, let's see how it gets announced.
Voiceover on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome.
Let's get that one.
Email. Untick. Tick box.
Email untick. Very nice.
Add. Untick. Tick box. Only notify for failed workflows. Dimmed untick. Tick box.
Huh. It says only it does read it out, and then it says dimmed. And dimmed is its way of saying it's disabled. It's unavailable. The word dimmed differs across screen readers. VoiceOver likes to call it dimmed. but it conveys, like, if you're a voiceover user, you know what dimmed means.
Cancel button.
And finally, it's even nicer if we actually add a caption, right? So if we say, why is it disabled? That's useful. And the way to do that is I just add a span, add an ID, and I'm going to, on the checkbox, I can say, ARIA described by this caption. So now let's see what happens.
Only notify for failed workflows. Requires at least one channel to be selected. Dimmed untick. Tick box. Select notification channels. Group.
Nice. So now I know what this does. Why is it disabled before it tells me it's disabled? Which means I can go up.
Untick. Tick box.
I want it on
Tick.
the app.
App. Tick box. Only notify for failed workflows. Untick. Tick box.
Nice. Now it didn't say dimmed. It didn't tell me why it's disabled. It's fine. I can select it.
Tick. Only notify for failed workflows. Tick box.
And I can save.
Cancel. Save. Button. Notify me. App. Failed workflows only. Menu pop-up collapsed. Button.
Nice. Very nice.
Voiceover off.
So the takeaway here is that we started this by realizing that we've made a design that's only works for visual users, and then we started improving it. And then we actually improved it to a point where I feel it's better for everyone. It works for screen readers, of course, but it's also, for a visual user, it's more clear what are my options, and why is it disabled? Very nice. All right. That clock is scary. All right. Now, this is one of my favorite components. I feel like every year I come and I at least have to include this in my talk. Thank you. Helpful reminder. I'm really, really beyond the time, right? Once every 10 minutes. OK, so this is how you select labels. And it's kind of a nice UI. I've used the same checkboxes that I used in the last example. The labels are connected, so I can select them. Seems nice. I actually want a bug. It's a good first issue. And I'm going to save. And it actually shows the bug. So seems like I'm doing everything from the last example. Feels like a good example here. Let's see what the screen reader users see. See here.
VoiceOver on Chrome. React app. Google Chrome. Add labels to issue. 0 labels applied. Menu pop-up collapsed. Button. Has keyboard focus.
There's a lot of nice things here. There's like it says, first it announces the where you are, which is nice. And then it says add labels to issue, which is nice because over here it just says labels. But you see have an ARIA label, which says add labels to issues. So sometimes it's not great, but sometimes it's OK and it's common to have a more reductive label, visual label, but then make a more descriptive ARIA label so that it's at least announce what you can expect from this. And because like this gear icon might have meaning to visual users, but it has no meaning to like screen reader users. Now, and there's an ARIA description which says 0 labels applied. So it's letting you know the line first. OK, let's open it.
Select labels. Dialog. Bug. Something isn't working. Untick. Tick box. List select labels. More than 100 items.
That was nice. It told the label is bug. It paused for like half a millisecond, and it told the description, so you also know what it means. And it said it's an unticked list something. Yeah. Did it? I think so.
Good first issue. Good for newcomers. Untick. Tick box.
Nice.
Up for grabs. Anyone can take on this work. It's ready to go. Untick. Tick box.
Very nice. OK, so I'm going to select
good first issue. Bug. Tick. Bug. Good first issue. Good for newcomers. Untick. Tick box.
That's what I want. Good first issue.
Tick. Good first issue.
Cool.
Good for newcomers. Tick box.
Nice. I'm going to save this now.
Up for grabs. Anyone can take on this work. It's ready to go. Untick. Tick. One fix. Beating hard. Status. Status. Type. Const. Dot. Patch. Might. Make. F. App. New. It. Cup. F. B. Screen. Need. Support. Component. Component. Button. Edit labels. Button. Cancel. Button. Save. Button.
Found it. Yeah, Kendrick's got nothing on Samantha.
Add labels to issue. 2 labels applied. Menu pop-up collapsed. Button.
Thank you.
VoiceOver off.
Now, it's very easy as a visual user to like use this, and yeah, I'm going to select a few things. Save is right there. I'm going to hit it. But if you're dependent on the DOM order, a scroll bar is like a very visual thing to be used to. But if you're using a keyboard, you would have to go through all the contents in the scroll bar to actually reach this section, which is kind of terrible. And that's a sign that the intentions were good. But we used checkboxes. We used all the right semantics. We even labeled them properly, but we still ended up creating it's technically accessible, but it's not robust. It's not very good to use. It's kind of really hard. And this is where we can reach out to another widget or a pattern, which is called listbox. So I can actually just get rid of that form and put div role listbox. And listbox is like a known widget. It has role options in it. And this instantly improves some of the semantics. So just like with the tabs, I'll have to inform it of a few things. So I have to tell what is it labeled by. And I'm going to do it's labeled by the label that was here. It's described by the description I had. And you can see I was using the same things for my input, but now I'm doing it for my option. I have to tell it when is it aria selected. So I had check, now I have aria selected. And yeah, that's clean. And I can actually get rid of this input now, because now we have two ways of looking at this. So if I go inside.
Voice up. Leaving select labels. Oops. Entering select labels list box.
Nice.
Bug. Something isn't working. Selected. 1 of 44.
Yes.
Leaving select. Entering select labels list box. Arrow key quick nav on. Good first issue. Good for newcomers.
Nice.
Select duplicate. This issue or pull request already exists. Enhancement. New feature or request. Not selected. 4 of 44.
OK, so there's a few things that improved. One, it's telling us not selected. It's telling us how many are there. There's 4 of 44. So even if you were to navigate,
application, nudge, question marks, or
you just have to do it 44 times really quickly. But because we talked about this earlier,
voiceover off.
Widgets can have their own navigation. So that means I can have this widget, and then when I want to jump, I can press tab, and it should exit the list box widget. So you can enter the widget, navigate with arrow keys up and down over here, and then if you press tab, you should escape the widget. Cool. So I'm going to wire that up. Let's see. Yeah, I made a React component. This isn't real, but it just felt really nice to use. And these are like fake slides. I can do whatever. So I created a component called focus zone. It's like the hook from the previous thing. And what it does is this becomes a keyboard navigation zone. And I can define which arrow keys to use. There's arrow up and down. And there's home and end, which is really cool. Because if I press end, it will go right to the bottom. If I press home, to the top. Very nice. Let's see. Quick demo of keyboard navigation. I can press down, 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 space bar to select, tab to exit. Amazing. Save. So you know how we're kind of obsessed with how many clicks did it take, right? Like this UI takes 3 clicks, 4 clicks. I think a similar thing should be how many tabs, how many keyboard strokes does it take? And I think we don't really measure that, but maybe if we look at it this way, we will. Cool. It's still like a really long list, so it would be nice if there was like a input over here, which you could use to filter. And this is like your boring classic React code. There's an input, there's a placeholder. It has an on change. And when it changes, instead of using repo labels, it uses filtered labels. So you can see there's a filter on top. If I start typing, I'm going to unselect a few things. P-U-G. It narrows the list, which is cool. Makes so much sense as a visual user, but what if you're not a visual user? Let's find out. I'm going to clear this.
Voiceover on Chrome. Select labels, filter labels, dialog, edit text, blank.
Nice. It starts with the filter. It tells you there's a filter.
Filter labels.
Thank you. It tells us a filter label. It's blank. Now I can type.
B.
It announces my keystrokes. Very nice.
U. G. Clear filter text. Entering select labels list box. Select label. Patch release. Bug fixes. Docs. Housekeeping. Not selected. 2 of 2.
Huh. But it doesn't. I have to enter the list and then find out, scroll through them to realize how many options are there, which is, I don't know what I'm getting into, and which is kind of weird. So
voiceover off.
To improve this, what we can do is add over here. Oh, you can't see this. We can actually announce. We can add a text field here, which tells you how many results are there. And the way to do that is you add another. There's another role called status. And a role status is a way of telling the user that something important has happened, and you need to be informed of it. And there are 2 live properties. There's polite and there's assertive. Polite would wait for its turn, or if there's something more important, like a keystroke, it would actually just skip it. Assertive, on the other hand, is more assertive. So it plays a beep, and it actually interrupts what you're doing. So if you're doing like an error message, or if something went wrong, it might be useful to use assertive. Otherwise, polite is usually the way to go. As in life. That's cute. OK, let's see. All right, screen reader on.
Voiceover on, voiceover off.
Oh, sorry. Designers hate that. So what you can do, again, not always a nice idea, but it's so common in the web to do it, is like hide it, but only for visual users. So like this class is like, I think I first saw it in Bootstrap so many years ago, but it's called screen reader only. And if you search for SR only on Google, you'd actually find the exact CSS for it. What it does is it positions it like somewhere off the screen, somewhere really far away, so that it's not visually there, but it's still exactly where it's supposed to be in the DOM. OK. Sorry for interrupting Samantha. We go again.
Select labels, filter labels, dialog, edit text, blank. B13, results available.
Ooh, B13, results available.
U4, results available. G2, results available.
Nice. So it's actually telling you how many results are there. So if you've filtered the list enough, you could be like, yeah, I'm gonna enter the list, just navigate it through. I'm gonna enter the list.
Bug, insertion at clear like filtered, entering select labels list box. Select labels, list box, one item selected.
Nice.
Bug, something isn't working, selected, 1 of 2.
And then if I want, I can actually exit the tab list.
Leaving select labels, edit, cancel, button.
Nice.
Voiceover off.
Funny thing, what if there's nothing to show? And there's just nothing here. So a general design thing is just show something like, there's no results for this. Try a different. This is really useful because we're also testing dark theme together. I know this doesn't use the right token. So it's useful to show the message here. And again, visual users can see this. But what about screen reader users? They can't. So this is where you can add multiple status. And I have this status, which is polite. I have this status, which is assertive. And let's test it out.
Voiceover on. Select labels, filter label. B13, U4, results available. G2, results available. F0, results available. No labels found for bugs. Full stop. Try a different search term.
Do you see it said 0 results available, and then it said no labels found. I had the beep. That's kind of very cool. And
voiceover off.
It's usually a good practice to have both of these in the DOM. And then you can switch their contents based on, do you want it to be polite? Do you want it to be assertive? Again, polite wouldn't interrupt you. Assertive would. Cool. Not important. So that was a lot. And that was a lot of talking from me and Samantha. All I want to say is, don't listen to the Twitter shamefluencers. I invented that, shamefluencers, because they try to shame you into thinking your code is bad and you should do better. But it's usually not good advice. It's just some code with a nice gradient on it. Remember POUR, that it should be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. When you build with everyone in mind, you actually end up with better interfaces for everyone. I hope we saw that with the checkboxes example. And unfortunately, there is no substitute to manual testing, because you saw we did the right semantics. It looked accessible, but the list was so long. And that's not something Axe or any automated testing can catch. That's just something. Just like good design, you can't really automation test good design. It's the same for accessibility design. You just have to use it. You have to get a feel for it. So there is, unfortunately, no substitute to manual testing. These are all the links that I talked about. These are the links. They're on this URL. If you want some garbage, you should follow me on Twitter. I think that's it. That's my talk. Thank you.